Welcome to Q&A, everyone, both home and online, here and online. This is the opportunity where we get an opportunity to ask questions about the sermon that was preached, about sort of practices, anything about City Church, and about anything in Christianity in general. My name is Akiemi, and
Damla, yes, my name.
okay, so we'll take questions. I think there's one question that has been sent in. We'll monitor our feed on YouTube for any questions that are coming through, but you also have an opportunity to ask questions. So there should be a roving mic, and Lola has hand up, and Toby, and I don't have my glasses. Who is that? Okay.
It's Dio.
Tayo, okay. All right, so we'll start. Where do you want to start from?
I think Lola or something.
All right, ladies first.
Morning. I
Good morning.
have two questions, but it's related to today's sermon. Um, so I know you spoke about like an aspect of people want to leave because they're not being paid, and obviously you use the example of housework, which is kind of different because you're committed to your family, and so there isn't an actual way for you to get paid commensurate to what you're actually doing. So I understand that. But if you're in a situation with a contract and they refuse to pay for months, what's the position on that? One, two, and we spoke about, you spoke about being content in our job roles, even though we're not proud of what we're doing. And I agree with that. My follow-up question would be, how do you manage ambition and contentment with work? Because obviously I start off maybe as an analyst or a cleaner, but that's not my intention to remain there. It doesn't mean I'm ashamed of what I'm doing, but how do I balance moving forward, loving through my work, and still not being ashamed of where I am? So those are my questions.
I'm just wondering how business owners can balance profit making and loving or looking out for their staff. Looking out for their staff and then ensuring that they are being honest in the services that they are providing. So you're not cutting corners to increase profit, and at the same time you're not over increasing expenditure to kill profit.
Hi, Dami. So there was something you said during the sermon. So you mentioned, give an example of someone that has like an assistant that is not doing so well, and then if you keep paying the person, um, you're incurring costs, and the person is not giving you the value that you want. And then what do you do in that case? So now, I don't think I'm not sure you answered that question, but you gave it as a scenario. So I would like you to, if I'm a business owner, right? I have limited resources. I have someone that's working with me, and the person is just isn't performing. I mean, is it wrong to let the person go? So that's one. Two. I think just to make Lola's question simpler. So you mentioned around contentment too. So I mean, I'm a janitor today. Um, I can do other things. I mean, I can be an accountant. I can. I mean, I can. I can. I know I have the talent and ability to do other things. So should I remain where I am? I mean, because I'm content and I just want to serve God there. I mean, so those are the questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have more? Okay, someone here and Mr.
So is there any on
No.
YouTube? Any questions on YouTube? We've taken 3 questions. One has already been sent, so we have 4 already. So we might be able to squeeze one more.
My question is, if it's God's purpose, right, for humans to work, right, is it to work leisurely or to work for a value system, like for money? Because I see that as humans, we tend towards rest than work. Like I'd rather be in Bahamas, just chilling and sipping juice and the rest. I mean, naturally, right? So I want to know: is the work we are talking about here, is it leisure or is it for a value in exchange for values?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then there's the question that is,
Last one there. Should we just take all
we
the questions that we now?
already have 5
Oh,
questions.
okay, we have
We already have 5
questions.
questions.
Okay, that will be the last one. Abi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's take it and let's see whether we can. And if we have time, we will. If not, it might be next week. But go ahead.
Okay, Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So I want you to speak into the space of what work to do. You know how a person could have multiple giftings and passions, and even in trying to say, I want to love this way. How do I know which way to go? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we go. What's the one that came?
So the one that came in is polygamy a sin?
Oh, okay. That one's for you, sir. Um. Okay. Work. Let's focus on work. So where should we start from? Um. Okay. So let me take Lola's first question. I think. So Lola asks that. So you okay? You're on a job, and then you've not been paid for a while. Okay, and you contrasted that with you've not been paid for 1 month. Oh, like 1 month. Okay. Okay, okay. All right, all right. 1 month and a long time. Okay. So what should the person do? Like what should be the person's reaction? You see, this is the issue of work. There's certain things that are clear and they are black and white, very straight to the point. God's view on work, coming to that brother's question just in a moment. God's view on work, what work is for, and all that. But then when we now start getting into specifics as yours, Mr. Law, about what should I do with my giftings and my talents, this kind of business, how should it specifically look like, um, working for God? Then we start seeing that we need wisdom to apply to certain situations. So with this one, I would say that working in a job that has not paid you, um, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I've heard of, and I just want to make the case for wisdom. I've heard of, I think I was in a chat with someone in a coffee cafe, in a cafe like some weeks back, and she told me how she started with this company. She was not like she was promised much. She was not even like some kind of startup. She was not really giving equity or giving anything per se. But she said, just come. Like, come and work for us, and then don't worry, things will happen, things will happen. And then she worked for them 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, even probably close to a year, and nothing happened. Several people left, said, this thing is just a dream. But then she said, maybe like in the second year, they now started to pay her. In fact, the guy did not just pay her, the guy now gave her vested equity, the guy gave her all the monies that he's not giving her like a year or so. Why am I telling that story? I'm saying that um, case might be different. For someone like that now, how was she able to survive for a year without getting paid? Probably she has investments. Probably she has a family that supports her. Probably she, we don't like she has some way to care for herself. So she'll be able to do that. She's able to key into the vision of the company, trust the founder, and stayed. And at the end of 1 year, it kind of worked out for her. That kind of but some people may not be able to do that. Some people may even key into the vision, understand it, and say, this thing will yield. But between now and when it will yield, I cannot really wait, and I don't have any backup plan. For those people, they would have to leave. They can't survive, and they key into the vision. But then will just be some people, and I'm sure this may be where a lot of people stand at. How can someone start a business and then is not able to pay his employees for that long time, or even for a month or two? When you start a business, you must have a plan. You too should even have your own backup as a businessman that before this starts to yield, though, I must have a plan to pay my employees. And so if we come to that part, that brings us to the part of the business owners and so. And I said that work is a way for us to make products and services that bless community, but also a way for us to provide opportunities for our employees to use their talents and their gifts. And if we want our employees to bring their full selves to work, it means that we must be taking care, we must treat them fairly, we must give them meaningful work to do, but we must also pay them wage that is good. All of that allows them to bring their best self to work. So I would say yes. On that angle, a business should be able to make a plan that ensures that the employees are able to get paid, because that is what a business should be for, and if we come from a Christian worldview. But in a case where unforeseen circumstances put a business in such dire straits, what should the business person do? The businessman will try leverage on community, leverage on social capital and all that to see how we can pay the staff. But if the business person can't, the man should probably have a conversation with staff and say, this is what's on ground, but division is division. Hopefully, he's been treating his staff fairly, he's been treating them well, that they're able to trust in him. This is it though. But if some of you cannot stay, I understand if you go. But this is what it is. And maybe even scale down the size of his vision if it means for the meantime, since our times are falling upon them. And then after a while, if things start to yield, you'll be able to remunerate other people. The option is not for the business to say, you guys don't just believe. You Gen Z people, you these team people, you guys don't know what's up. You can't sleep, you can't work. I know what I did. You have to be here. That would not be the option for him. The decision to stay or leave has to be based on each individual circumstance and their own choosing. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. So, how many people understand? I hope most people understand that working for a smaller business or a startup is riskier than working for a larger company when it comes to compensation, both sides of compensation, and the regularity. So if you work for a small business or a startup and your salary is late because of certain issues, employees tend to be more understanding that if you're working for a large corporation and salary doesn't come, in fact, you take to social media immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So part of what we need is to be aware of the context of our work. If you are going to work for a large corporation, you have expectations, and you can set those expectations accordingly. And your complaint mind or your ability to adjust and speak to management is based on the fact that you work for a large corporation. If you're working for a small business, right, you should set your expectations accordingly. And I'm not saying that to mean expect because of the possibility that your salaries won't be on time, that there's no accountabilities there. I'm saying it actually calls for you to pay more attention to the context and the surrounding of that business, and to care more for that business and to pray more for that business. There's more for you to do in that context as an employee. I'm going to work with a business. It's starting up. There will be risks. On the other side, the management should hopefully communicate a bit more with employees than they would with if they were in a large corporation, so that when we have, if you're in that kind of business, if I was a business owner, if I have those sort of challenges or constraints, I will be telling my employees that, we've had a nice month, but this month is challenging. Everybody brace up. Or even you might even feel it in what you're being asked to do on a weekly basis. There's no money. You need to do more business development, more sales, more this, more that. So you have to pay attention to the context that you're working. You cannot be shocked. You cannot be shocked if like someone say, I've not been paid for 12 months. 12 months. Now, it's two things should have happened. It's either there's communication going on with you, you believe in the vision and whatever and the promises, and that's why you're holding on. Or it shouldn't be the other side where you are just hoping and it just continued, and there's something, either you're not paying attention or you are not as savvy as you should, and so you should be asking other people in your own company. I mean, you have friends, talk to your friends or your industry. Is this how it is? I've had instances where there's good and bad. The good one where challenges, there was some communication, they held on, and the promises were fulfilled. They paid your back salaries, they gave you bonus, and things went well. And we've also seen cases where, the guy hasn't paid for 9 months. Eventually, you got your voice, your fellow staff, you said something, and because the guy starts spending money in a certain way, you're like, it seems like there's money in our company where it's just not coming to us. Then they say the MD is going to travel. He's going to travel. And then he travels, and then, and then his family travels too. And then 3 months after that, it'd be like say he has relocated and we have not been paid. Now, most people, so obviously you can see which one is a terrible environment, but most people who find themselves in that second environment may be faced with something more than just an unpaid job. They may not have the skills or the confidence to go and look for another job. So a lot of people feel trapped within that context. So I must say that if you find yourself in a place where 3 months, you have to constantly evaluate and say to yourself, if I don't get paid, do I have a backup plan? Do I have, you have to start making plans. So whether you believe in the story and you plan to be there and you say, okay, I can be here for 9 months, you should have marketable skills. You should be going through some process of self-improvement. People have told stories where, so when the salary is not paid, that means you're spending out of your money to even transport yourself. And it can be really, really terrible. So we have to understand the context. I would say, just in summary, understand the context in which you work, be involved in your industry, your sector, your company, care, pray, communicate, and ask, if you have a boss who sort of gives you an appeal, tell him you'd appreciate if he told you a little bit more about how the company is doing, about what's happening in the future, so that you can plan accordingly. He owes you that much, so that you can at least say, I can plan to stay here for a little bit and trust in the vision, because it's that sort of communication that helps you trust in any case. Or if the signals are no good, you just start making your own plans and reach out to other people to find another means of employment. You can't stay somewhere trapped for 12 months and be shocked. I mean, I'm saying it can happen to people, it's happened to people, but you can't be shocked that you didn't get paid. Right? It means there's something more to be done. All right. What's the other?
So I think Lola's second question, I'm trying to remember.
So last question about contentment and ambition. Is that and I think Daya had that also.
Yeah.
I would say that contentment has to do with our moment by moment repose in God's ability to care for us. That the context that I find myself today, even if it's not good, I can enjoy God. I can enjoy all that God has given to me despite all what I lack. It doesn't mean that I don't have a different vision for myself for the next 1 year. Right? So I'm in dire straits now. I can say, okay, things are not good at work, but I can give thanks to God. I can praise God. I can be joyful. But I can say to myself, 1 year from now, I want to be out of this space. So I have a vision of what my future looks like, and I have motivation or drive to carry myself, to propel myself with God's people, with God's help, with all the skills and opportunities that God gives me. That's what I would call ambition. And so there is no tension, I should say. There should be no tension between contentment and ambition. Ambition has to do with what I want to be or look like in the future. And contentment simply means I can dwell happily today. But it doesn't mean I want to be here in a year from now. And so if you are ambitious, ambition, again, look to the future. What kind of person you want to be? What kind of context you want to find this? What kind of business environment do you want to be? What kind of earnings do you want to be having? And then you ask yourself, how do I get from where I am today to that place in the future? So do I need new skill sets? Do I need a new network? Do I need new training? What is it that I need? So I need to be meeting people. I need to be getting retrained. Or I need to be doing better at what I'm doing. Sometimes the work that you're in currently, you can say to yourself, I'm going to be out of this job. I'm going to be out of this company in 1 year. There's no way I can stay because of all, just the context. However, when I leave in 1 year, I want to be able to say that, I'm the best at what I did. I want to be able to say that I deliver on X, Y, and Z. I want to be able to say that when they go back for references and they check on me, I want to be able to say, I want them to give them I have a great reputation that I did my work as unto the Lord, right? So if you don't like where you are right now, there is no Christianity or God is not opposed to you changing, to you improving, to you having ambition. Just make sure that you connect it accordingly. What the Bible talks about is inordinate ambition that causes you to steal, kill, destroy, backstab, do Yahoo, or do so that your current environment, you handle it in such a terrible way, in such an ungodly way. If you're doing your work in an ungodly way because of the profit you want to make or because of what you're trying to get, then you fall into the category of having inordinate ambition. You're willing to do anything possible to advance.
Yeah, so I'll tie just a few comments on that to Allah's question about how do you find out how you should love, with your work, or what work should you choose? So I see, two scriptures come to mind. Ambition is something I grapple with a lot of times because I work anytime if I take walk in my estate and I look at the security guard, manning almost all of the houses there. I'm saying to myself, most of them they are usually northerners. They don't really have tertiary education, and many of them that I know, at least the ones that work for us, that will do stuff for us in our house, not just man our house, but help us run errands. They're really, really good at what they do. Right. So I always tell myself, I think myself, I said, So this guy did not go to school, and this guy doesn't really want to go to school. And this guy, with all that he does in his estate, he makes a lot of money, more than many graduates that I know. Do you understand? Like, and he's able to take care of himself and send money back home to his family. In fact, he even takes sabbatical. Like one of them, Sanusi takes sabbatical. He goes home like every 3 months on work on the farm and be with his parents and his wife and children. So I'm thinking, this guy looks like he's at the low rung of the ladder, but he seems to be doing well than many of my friends, just in his entire quality of life. So should I tell Sanusi that Sanusi should go to university? Should I tell Sanusi that Sanusi should go and learn programming so that he can make more money? And but Sanusi is not complaining. So I'm always thinking about that. I don't know the answer, but I'm thinking, should I? Should I? Should I? So there's that. So whatever brings contentment. That brings us a question of contentment. If Paul says that I know both how to be when I don't have, I know both how to be when I have much. Paul is saying where we are in the terms of our work, like we can enjoy God fully, we can have God maximally, we can live a life to the full. But Paul is not just say low. Paul said that when he's high too, he can also be content. So Paul is not even against people aiming for much or having eye on their table. In fact, when the two disciples came to meet Jesus and they asked Jesus, we want to sit on your side. Two of them said they want to sit on their side of Jesus. Jesus did not say, you guys are, just not condemn them and say, you guys are asking too much. No, Jesus say, good question. If any man wants to be great, since the question like you can be great, you can want to be great. But if anyone wants to be great, he must first decide that he should be a servant. So again, since just talking about the art. So if you are down in a low, you are down in this job and you feel like this is not where you want to be, the question is, do you have a servant heart? The question is, do you know how to be content when you're low? Because if you don't have that right heart when you're low, it means that even if you rise to the top of a career, you still will not have heart, the right heart. So you will not be serving God well, both as a janitor or you will not be serving God as the CEO of your company. And that's what matters the most. So it's not whether you rise or you stay low. So that's one way to look at it. And then if I want to connect that to Mr. Law's question about how you choose passion. So someone will say, and this is how society approaches this question a lot. How should I decide what I should do, what work I should take, what work I should take? And society, like, we tend to talk a lot about this around the idea of passion. What are you passionate about? What do you enjoy doing? What do all of that. And there's a lot of there's good in that, there's truth in that, because God gives us certain burdens and desires to do certain things. But I think we should be careful with the idea of passion when it comes to work. Because sometimes when you use the idea of passion, for many people, they're usually thinking about themselves. They're not really thinking about the people that they want to serve, because work is a way to love. So you're not thinking about the people that you want to serve, the community you want to serve, the people you want to bless with value. You're thinking about yourself. How can I satisfy this my passion? That's one problem. The second problem with passion is that not everything that is your passion pays you. You can have my passion. I don't tell you my passions. If I focus on my passion, some people even say the passion that I'm focusing on self may not pay me. So, but but the idea is that many things that are your passion will not get you paid. So, and then you want to work in a way that you can serve not just through the work you're doing, but also serve through what you're making for your work and make your family. So, passion is a bit troubling. I think the best way to look at it is to ask yourself what Frederick Bruckner says. Frederick Bruckner is a writer, and he says this. He says that your calling or your work often lies at the intersection of your greatest gifts and abilities and the world's deepest needs. That is where your work often lands. So being very aware of the things you are very, very, very good at, and then looking for what is the way that I can use these gifts and talents, this experience and education to meet the greatest need in the world. That is where most of our genuine ideal work that God is calling us is. That is where it sits. So it means that, oh, yes, these are my gifts and my abilities. You have to ask yourself a question like, so if there are two jobs in front of you now, if there are two opportunities in front of you, you may say, but I love doing this one more. My gifts can make me do this one, my gifts can make me do this one. But I love doing this one more than I love doing this one. And you have to look, are you following passion? Be careful. Or are you following the needs of people? So you have to look, I love doing this one more, but this one pays me more than this one. You have to look, are you being moved by money towards that job or towards that calling? You have to be careful. So where you want to really get is which of these opportunities will allow me to serve the most people and serve them well? And then, in a way that will still allow you to meet the needs of your closest family, other people that God have called you to your church, and the community at large. So it is your greatest talent and the world's deepest need. That is the best way I've seen anyone talk about it. So that is, I don't know if that makes sense at all. Does that make sense?
Okay. I would say, just riffing on your comment on talents, Lola asked a question of contentment and ambition intention. I think Dio asked about the question of contentment and ambition in light of your talents.
Yeah.
So, and of course, the parable of I've heard the parable of the talents in Matthew 25 used to talk to sort of speak of the context of the natural giftings that we have as human beings, or natural talents that we may have come with, to say that to use that as a framework to sort of frame this question about ambition. And so let's assume that you are talented in a particular area. Part of what lets you know whether your ambitions are proper or not, right, is whether you actually have either passion, you're able to develop your skill set, or you have something innate in you that you can do, and you know you can do more of it. And so there's a possibility that while we often focus on people who have too much drive, too much ambition, there's also a question of, is someone under ambitious? Is somebody talented? Do people see a lot in you that maybe you don't see in yourself? Or you even acknowledge that you have the ability to do certain things, but you don't always perform to that expectation. So there's an issue that could be there also. And I would say that there are many things to be said about that. First, the awareness, the acknowledgement of the talents that you have in you, the requirement to be diligent in training, because the talent may be like this, but you can develop it a little bit further. Develop yourself, build some confidence, talk to other people that can help you sort of bring that out. And of course, the context for Matthew 25 was that, all the other ones. One was given 10 talents, and then he invested in it, invested that talent, and then made more of it. And one was given 5 and made more of what God gave them. And one got and was essentially slothful and lazy and did not think of honoring or glorifying the person who provided him with that talent, and then went and buried it. And it's used as an analogy for someone who's given a lot but doesn't really do much with it. And so I think we can be aware of that and do this sort of self-evaluation of, we know we can do certain things, or we know we have a passion for certain things, we can do better, and we don't. So we always have to kind of always check ourselves so we're not falling into the opposite problem of the overambitious person.
Yeah, so I think I'll just quickly, maybe you take Darius' question about
employees' bad performance. That's a fact.
Yeah. Like,
and responsibilities for owners to dismiss or keep.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a word from the Lord. This is HR. If you're a business owner or a business manager, it's not just those who own a company. People who are responsible for managing businesses. They always have to make a decision as to whether they're deploying their capital and resources appropriately. But even when you have, I think in a lot of organizations, where you have people who are not living up to their sort of performance standards, there are a number of things you can do. And again, the context actually matters. If you have a large corporation that has multiple resources, the way companies often handle is different from when there's a small business and you kind of feel like, I don't really have a lot to do. We always say, first of all, you try and train your employees. You try and orient them, give them an understanding of the work they're doing. And there's a number of interventions you can have to ensure that this person can, bring up their performance. But at some point in time, if you get to a point where, you've tried all the interventions and there's no other space within the organization, because this happens quite a lot too, where you're able to move someone into another role and they perform excellently in that role. If you've done all those things and there doesn't seem to be any other option, you as a Christian owner, a Christian manager, you will be put in, not that you will be put in a situation where you'd have to recommend that someone exits the business. Now, what makes it different for the Christian is that you seek for all the opportunities to help this person. So imagine that if that person, it was your brother or sister in church, right? In church, yeah. And if it hasn't happened to you, it will happen. You recommend someone or someone will come and work with you. And you have to go through this process where, again, you help with giving context for the business, you help with more information, you try and help them sometimes with their personal lives, personal effectiveness, you put them on training, you even help them after hours, weekends, can you catch up on stuff? Or if there's, and sometimes you just have to sit down and ask, are you interested in this thing? Sometimes you find some people are wired for something different, and they've done the best they can in this context. I don't think there are very few people that will go through life. I'll now have a job that they'll say, I did my best, but my best was not good enough. If you're in that, if you never have to say that, that's wonderful. But you can say, I did my best, but I know that I fell short, and I know I just couldn't do it. You may not have been fired. In fact, maybe you just said, oh, well, I need to look for another, now I know. You found another job and you went away. So you fired yourself before they fired you, right? So there are places you feel that you may feel inadequate, not up to the task, and you look for something else. In some cases, you struggle, so thinking you can make a go of it. And the people who are around you, and this is where, and sometimes that assessment, you can do an assessment with your peers at work, with your seniors, and maybe some people under you to kind of see if what they think about you, whether they understand what your weaknesses may be. And if you then do this sort of assessment that you are, this is not a good fit, you can decide to look for something else. And if you are the boss, you can do the same thing for that employee. Give them feedback, ask them to ask their own peers for feedback and talk to maybe their juniors. And and ask for feedback from that feedback. And then you can tell the person, you should be able to have a conversation with the person, have a career chat. Because part of what you do as Christian brothers or sisters or owners and managers is mentor people, help them, serve them. And the best service at this point may be, I think you need to exit, and I'll help you or put in a good word for you elsewhere. These are the weaknesses I've seen in you. These are the strengths I've seen in you. Hopefully you've got other feedback from other people. When you're looking for a new job, maybe this is the kind of context that you can look for that can help you succeed. Or maybe just pure, you don't have the skill sets at this point in time. You're slow in picking up those skill sets and competencies. The workplace is maybe a faster workplace. The pace is just different from the way you're growing, but you're growing very, very slowly, and then an adjustment needs to be made. All those are the things that a Christian, peer or brother, sister, manager should be able to do for their fellow employee.
Perfect. We have only 2 questions left. I don't know if we have time for the 2. Maybe we should take one. There's the one about, do we work towards leisure?
Tedo's question on business owners balancing profit and
so that means we have 3.
Employee welfare, and then did God make work for leisure?
And then the polygamy scene one.
And the polygamy one.
I think how many?
All right, we can center today's one on work, and then Pastor Femi is back when
next week.
Next
so
week.
We'll tell the church
find one.
what he believes or not.
Absolutely.
Hallelujah.
Glory. All right. Tedo's question on business owners balancing profit and employee welfare.
Yes. No. I'll take this work leisure one.
Okay. So
maybe I should go. I show you just close everything up. Let me do that. You just close it up.
All right, go ahead.
Close it up. So so work as leisure. You see, I want to try to answer it as quick as possible. The thing is that for when we have to do like way back. So Christianity is like the first religion or worldview or anything that made work seem good at all. Like just work. Christianity is the first that made work seem good. Before Christianity, other religions and worldviews have made work seem like work is dirty. Work is something that you do because you have to do it. Work is something that is meant for the lowest people in society. The kings, the royalties, they should just spend their time philosophizing. That's the Greek time. In the medieval times, it used to be like it is the people that are highest are the priests and the religious people. All those guys, those are the people that are top. All the people that work, they are still at the bottom. It was only during Reformation, when Martin Luther and co, went against the Catholic Church and all that, they started to say, no. Work is actually very good. Work, all work, not just the priest work, not just the royalty work, but every work, anybody that is doing any kind of good work is good and the person is the priest, is royal priesthood, that person is a holy nation, the way First Peter said, just like any other kind of work. So they reclaimed it then. So, but what happened then was that what the Protestants reclaimed, what Martin Luther and Co. reclaimed, now became such a part of the community, part of the society, that it was now taken to the other extreme. So here we had leisure was the main thing before, and then information came and said work is good. So we now had what you call the Protestant work ethic. Then work now went on and became like the ultimate thing in society, such that people define themselves by work and all that. In fact, there's this guy called Derek Thompson who wrote an article called "Workism is Making Americans Miserable." If you read it, he defines workism as taking work as something that produces your identity, that makes you a person. Like without this work, you are not a person. And that is why you have a lot of people stories about burnout and exhaustion. So we have that, taking that truth of God's word to an extreme. So because of burnout and exhaustion and all that, there are now other people are now coming up to say, I don't know if you know some of them, but they are now coming up to say, human beings should not work like this. They shouldn't work as slaves like this. They're not even Christians that are saying this. People are looking at Marissa Mayer that I talked about in someone. How can you say you work 130 hours a week? Like, you look at mental health and everything. No, people can work like this. In fact, I'm thinking that we should go back to the original design when leisure was the main thing and then work was the thing that you did on the side. No, let's go back there. I think human beings are made to leisure. Human beings are made to leisure. But you're making a mistake too. Because if we go back to the scripture and we go to Genesis 1, when the Bible says that we were made in the image of God, the first thing we've seen about God there was that God created things. God walked. He said God walked and God rested. And then when he created man, he said, this man has been made in my image. The thing that we can see there against all religions and worldview at the time was that man was meant to walk, just like the person who he has been created in the image of, meant to walk. Walk in the image of Ra, to rule, to walk through their work, through what they do with their hands. So man, in a sense, was made for work, made to work. I know how you can even say this. Practical example. Look at someone who was working actively, who is young, and then lost their job, and have not worked for months or for years. Even if this person is not lazy, and the person is not slothful, even if the person has other ways that they are surviving and they are making it, you just lose. There's a grumpiness, there's a dissatisfaction, there is like, why I need to work. I'm an able man, I'm an able woman. I need to I have all this and I'm not doing it. There's a grumpiness, there's dissatisfaction. Or people that even retired, that they worked up onto 65 years old and they retired. You find that they cannot really retire. They always find, you see that woman, like my neighbor, and she has retired as a nurse, she worked for many years, but then she will still open that small shop in front of it and be selling medicine. Because they can't just, you have to work. Work is how God has designed us to be. So the problem is not whether work is good or we're made to work. The problem is that we're taking work to the extreme. If we stay within the bounds of what God has defined, the limits God has set for us as work, working and resting, working as a way to love, working as a way to serve others, and resting also, and loving others in other different ways, then the value of work will even be more prominent. And then rest and leisure will just be like, rest and leisure should be that, you've worked, now you are going to rest so that you can be renewed, so that you can love others in other ways, and so that you can come back to your work to do your work better. That is how the balance ought to be. Yes.
Awesome. Reminds me of the joke. Don't take any moral dressing from this joke. The joke about the investment banker who went on holiday to the beach and then saw a man selling like the best ice cream ever. He said, man, this ice cream is amazing, fantastic. He says, do you have a factory where you make this? He said, no, I just do it in the back of my house. He says, I can raise money for you and we'll build a factory. And then, this ice cream that you're just selling on this beachfront, we can sell it statewide and then we can go national with it. And then the guy said, and then what will I do after we go national? Say, so after we go state, we'll go national. And then what would I do after that? And then you do an IPO. Then what do I do with IPO? Then you have all this money and then you can retire to the beach. The guy says, but I'm already at the beach now. That sort of thing. So again, contentment, ambition, drive, and all that. Leisure and work. All right, so today's question, take it quickly. Business owners balancing profit and employee welfare. So we talk about doing this for, love and care for the people that we work with, to serve them, to make sure that they flourish. Even in in secular, I would say, evaluation of the work environment, there's a word that's used today called sustainability, meaning if you take all the tools that I'm sorry to call human beings tools. If you take all the tools, all the resources that you use to generate revenues and profits, you should start thinking about them in a way that ensures that those resources can be renewed, can always be present for you to continue to generate your revenues and profits. So if you've ever run a logistic business and you're using a truck, if you do not put in a maintenance plan for that truck, what happens? It breaks down, and then you can't run it going forward. And that's the whole idea of sustainability, whether it's in a natural resource arena, but even with service. Service companies are based on human beings, employees, and things like that. And so the idea is, think of your employees as a resource that you need to ensure that they are doing well so that they can provide for you, But the abuse comes from an environment. Generally, the abuse we see comes from an environment where there's more supply of labor than demand for it. So Nigeria, 200 million people, 30 million unemployed, 35 million underemployed, meaning they're selling things. They're only almost 70 million people who are not fully employed in their full capacity. So when you have an oversupply, there's a tendency for you to, take staff, run them, like that truck, without maintenance, without giving rest, without providing all the things that are necessary for them to thrive. And then when they're tired and they can't do it anymore, they can't perform anymore, what do? You're not performing well, show them the door, bring in the next person. I've worked with at least 2 companies who said to someone who complained about work life and just a crazy way of doing things, and they said, if you don't like it, leave. There are people lining up, almost word for word, like they went to the same, say, leave. There are people lining up to take your job right now. And so everybody just keeps quiet and they continue to do that. That is not how we learned Christ. And that's not what the Bible prescribes. So the whole idea is this. You do your forecast for your business. You know your environment. You know what your market opportunity is. You know the tools, the resources that you need to sort of make sure that your business succeeds. So you assign value to those things. I'm going to maintenance, I'm going to pay salaries, I'm going to give time off. You should build all those things into your business and say, this is kind of my desired or target profit. Now, things won't always work out the way you planned it. And so the tension for the Christian owner or business leader is, as you operate week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year, ensure that you are using those opportunities to renew, to get your employees rest, to get them renewal, to make sure that they can be present for you. Now, people often think you don't, and I know this because I've run a small business before, you don't have to pay the same way a large corporation pays. It's not, salary is not the biggest factor in whether you are treating your employees well. Sometimes it's the motivation. If you're going to have your employees put in a lot of hard work and personal thinking and thought, perhaps one of the things you do is give them motivation, help them to buy into the service that you're providing to your community. Make sure that they know that you're serving them. When I said, don't make it obvious. You're serving them, meaning you are helping them increase their skill sets and competencies. You're giving them fulfillment with the work that they do. You're paying a decent wage. You're giving time off when necessary. You're giving adjustments to those things you don't bank on. Somebody's child is sick. They need to quickly go and attend to it. Make sure that you can do those things. Now, will all this come at a cost? Will all this come at a cost? Yes. Yes, it will. And so the challenge is to build that environment where you will bear some of that cost, and hopefully your employees will see how well you treat them. So when it's time for them to sacrifice, stay the extra hours, work weekends, go the extra mile for a customer or client, that they will be also willingly happy to do all those things. So we have to, as Christians, you have to think about how we serve our community as leaders, business leaders or owners. But also, if you're on the other side as an employee, you have to serve your community well. Sometimes it involves sacrifice. It's not every time right. It's not every time right. For the Christian, love transcends rights. Love transcends duty, right? It means when something is necessary for our community to thrive, we'll sacrifice on both sides. So that tension will always be there. Profit versus, my employee welfare. And the hope is that as you build, and so culture, all this comes into culture. If you are able to build a culture where anybody in the business will say, my bosses care for me, they care about what happens in my life, right? And I know that when I needed some accommodation, I know it cost them. If they can say clearly that, yeah, I know it cost them, then hopefully that culture also means that they will then make sacrifices that cost them also, so that balance, so that business can be built, it can thrive, and all of us can flourish. All right. Last question. So that's the last question. We'll take the question on polygamy next. I don't know if Pastor Femi is back, but maybe Francis will be the one that'll handle it. But until next week, we'll see you. Thank you very much.